morning. How was everybody's evening? All right, we have sound. So we should be good there. Although, why is... Let's see something. Start here in one minute. Good morning, everybody. Just going to make sure that everything's cooperating. All right. Yay, Miss Lori. So glad you were able to make it live with us today. Yes, I have quite a mess in the studio at the moment with almost every possible machine hook system, all except for a Q series. But we'll take, if there is time, we'll take a field trip out to a Q series machine so I can talk about where to oil it. But I do have images, so yes, lots to discuss. Good morning, everybody. So many of you are here because I told you that we would be doing the drawing for our Get to Know Your Customer. Well, I've actually extended it, so sorry. There were so many comments and still so many comments coming in this morning, I didn't want to cut it off. So, and I haven't had a chance to read all of them yet. I've been working through them, but the ones that came later, I had to go home last night and do some work, so I had to put my phone down. So I didn't get a chance to read everything and to compile it all before 8 o'clock this morning, so I'm going to give another day. So Sunday morning, I will do a little video and we will draw our winners. So I apologize if you were coming here today. You'll have to wait just a little bit longer before I do the drawing. I just want to make sure that I want to read and comment to all of them. First, I have to take care of both Instagram and Facebook because you can enter in both sides. We will have winners from both platforms because I know some people only do Facebook and I have some people that only do Instagram. So we have multiple platforms. Plus, I didn't get a chance to get all the prizes together that I want to give away. I have a few, but I didn't have the time to dig in my prize box to put some more together. So just a little bit longer and we will do some drawings. So this morning we are going to do a little conversation on the cleaning and maintaining of your machine. Okay, and like I said yesterday, for those that may not own Berninas, it's okay. What I talk about, yes, will be Bernina specific, but really does apply to all brands. I have some drop-in bobbins. I have our Bernette series of machines are drop-in bobbins. So I will discuss a drop-in bobbin system and things along that line. So hang with us. We appreciate everyone being here. And I hope that you learned something this morning. And if you have any questions, please feel free to comment there in the comment section so that I can make sure that I answer that for you. I'm going to make me a little bit smaller so that you have more of the screen. Okay. So first up is usually, how often do I do this? Okay. How often do I oil? How often do I clean my machine? The general rule of thumb is every 3 or 4 bobbin changes, you want to clean your machine, okay, and possibly lubricate your hook area. Now, for those that may not be familiar, our Bernina machines are front-loading bobbin case machines. So we're not a drop-in system. We load from the front. Our hooks are metal on the inside. And so those hooks need to be lubricated to keep the metal moving smoothly around there so that we can keep good tension and stitch quality. So every 3 to 4 bobbin changes, you want to clean your feed dogs, clean your bobbin area, lubricate your hook at the end of the day, okay, of sewing. Plus, you always want to start with a new needle for every project. And this is overly going to really ultimately depend upon what fabric and thread that you are using, okay? So, you know, sewing with cotton, you may not need to clean as often as you would if you were sewing with maybe flannel or wool. Fuzzier fabric creates more lint, more dust and lint that builds up in your machine. That dust and lint is what ends up soaking up the oil that's in there. And so you may find that you need to oil more often, okay? Now, I normally will tell most people that, you know, when your machine starts having an issue in terms of tension or thread quality, stitch quality or something along that lines, I usually will ask, have you given it some oil? And 1 drop will go a long way, okay? And you will be very surprised at what 1 drop of oil will do to fixing your machine. And even if you've given it 1 drop, we ask that you, after you've oiled it, run it for, you know, a few minutes just so that you can get that oil redistributed in your hook area, and it should clear up the problem, okay, if that was the issue. Could also be bad needle, rethread, rewind bobbins, things along that lines, but you want to pay attention to oiling your machine, okay? All right, 1 second. Okay, so the first thing that we need to do is to get under the hood. Okay, so let's talk about how we get to the feed dogs, because those feed dogs are what ultimately is going to feed your fabric underneath the foot. And so it has the closest contact to fabric and creating lint and dust. And so therefore, if they get impacted or filled with dust and lint, your feed dogs will stop feeding accurately. And therefore, again, you'll have issues with stitch quality, tension issues, things along that lines. So, most stitch plates, okay, if you're a drop-in bobbin system, here on the left-hand image, you typically will use a screwdriver to remove the 2 screws to then remove that whole stitch plate, okay? So my Bernette series of machines, thanks Mom. My Bernette series of machines, even some of my older Berninas, you used stitch plates that were screwed on. There were some other older Berninas that were spring latched as well. And then on the right hand side are pretty much the classic line Berninas. Most Berninas today have a stitch plate that if you press in the upper right hand corner, you press down, and you will see, and I'll show you when I get over to a machine, there's usually a little like bullseye mark in that corner. So if you press down in the upper right hand corner, that will pop the plate up, and then you can get your fingers underneath of it from the front and remove it, okay? And that will allow you to clean up the feed dog area, okay? Now, never, ever, ever use canned air, okay? It's very popular, you know, we use it more for keyboards and things like that and computers, but using canned air is a no-no for a sewing machine. You want to use the brush that was provided to you with your machine, or a larger, softer brush that allows you to get in there. You don't want anything that's got sharp metal, because you don't want to scratch the metal that's on the inside of the machine. There are lots and lots of options for brushes. Oops, let's get that there. And I will talk about those when I get over to the machine. Why not use canned air? Well, here's why. Okay, so if you look at this machine, the section that's right there in front middle is what is underneath your free arm cover. Okay, you don't have access to that. You can't get into that. That's only available for when the service technician has your machine for its annual cleaning. You will notice that the hook area where your bobbin case is there on the left is nice and beautiful. Nice and clean, right? What happens with canned air is all you do is blow it other places. And typically you blow it to wherever it's going to travel. And in that free arm, when you open your bobbin door, typically down to the right, you do have access, you know, there's open space in there. So the lint will find its way and ends up impacting and really making a big giant mess behind that. Okay, and you can't get to that, which is why we don't want to use a can of canned air. Okay, because all you're doing is, yes, you're making your bobbin area look pretty, but you're making the inside of your machine not so pretty. And then it will start to negatively impact your machine quality and stitch quality, and then it will have to come in for service. Okay, so you want to make sure that you're not using canned air. You can use a mini vacuum cleaner attachment, okay, and you can vacuum it out. We have those here in the store as well. You basically attach it to the end of your vacuum cleaner nozzle, and it makes it a little tiny nozzle so that you can get in there and suck stuff out. Okay, all right, so that will help in that aspect. So once you have that open, let's look at one more thing. So for my machines today, classic newer machines, we have thread cutters. Okay, so those are, you know, push your scissors and your machine cuts your thread. These machines, so my 5 and 7 series machines that have thread cutters, you will also get a notification after you've done so many thread cuts that you need to clean, and they call it the thread catcher. Okay, and so that confuses people, because that comes up and they're like, "What's a thread catcher? I don't know what that is." Well, it's actually the piece of equipment that catches your thread so that the blade can come out and cut it. And so we like to clean that thread catcher, because as those little tiny pieces of thread build up, they can impact how your thread cutter is going to cut. Okay, and that thread cutter can get bent. Okay, if you pull against it trying to get out a gnarled up knot. So you want to be very cautious when you are cleaning up the thread catcher. You want to be careful as well when you're trying to unjam the machine, that type of thing. So you want to be careful, careful, careful. I'm going to walk through the steps, and then we're going to I'm going to change over to a camera, and I'm going to show you on the machine what happens. So sometimes you will get that message that tells you, you know, it's time to clean your thread catcher when you turn the machine on, and if you hit the OK button, it will take you to the screen that will walk you through it. Sometimes it won't, it just comes up and gives you a page not found error, but let me show you where to find it. So you're going to go into your machine settings, and so that's the gears on my newer machines, and then once you touch the gears, which is your personal setup, you're going to go into machine settings. So you're going to touch the option that shows the machine there. Once you're inside the machine settings, you're going to choose the wrench. Okay, this is the cleaning, service, maintenance kind of icon. And then we're going to, once we're inside of there, we're going to select the icon that is the broom. Okay, the broom is what we use to clean out the thread catcher. It's going to once you open that window, it's going to give you a step-by-step follow along type setting. Now the big thing here is that many of you read it, but you don't read it, and then you don't know why nothing's happening. So in the wording, it has a set of words that are in blue, and it says to select the link. So you push that link, and it may take you a couple of times to touch it for you to actually get a hold of the link. Usually you'll see a little hourglass kind of blink on the screen, and then you're like, nothing happens. Well, after you push that link, you need to touch the scissors on the head of your machine. So once you touch that link, you're then going to press the scissors, okay? And then you will follow the steps of removing the thread. So carefully, once the thread cutter is open, use tweezers. You can use a small brush, something along that lines, to be able to get a hold of any thread tails that are in the thread catcher. And then once you've cleaned that all out, removed any debris, that type of thing, you will do the steps in reverse. Scroll down on the screen, it'll say push this link here to move the thread catcher back in. So you push that link, and typically the thread catcher will automatically return. Sometimes, depending upon the machine, you may have another button that you need to push to get the thread catcher to go back in. Okay, so let's take a look at a machine here. Yay, it's going to cooperate for me. Okay. So you see here I have on the screen a picture of a stitch plate. So up here in this upper corner is where you push down, okay? And then you can get a hold of the stitch plate without a problem. And so on the stitch plate, you'll see there's what looks kind of like a little bullseye, and so that's just telling you that's where you need to step down or push down on. Okay, now let me go into, now this is an 8 series machine that I'm working on right here at the moment, but it looks a little different than if you're a 4 or 5 or a 7 series machine, but the steps are the same. So I'm going to go into the cleaning. I'm going to select the link to move the thread catcher out. I'm going to push the button on the machine, and this little piece will slide out. When that piece slides out, I can use a pair of tweezers. Okay, I like to use a pair of what we call Swiss style tweezers. They camera catches up. They are really sharp at one point, and they kind of point outwards, so they look like a little duckbill. And then you can use that to get any thread tails or anything that are caught in there. You can use a small brush, okay? So this is just like a paintbrush, okay, that you can use to brush inside of here. It's a real soft, nothing too stiff. We also have these silicone brushes that can be washed off when they're dirty. You have the brush that came with your machine, whatever you want to use, okay? So you can clean up your thread catcher and then come down and you select the link on screen that tells you to move the thread catcher back in, and it will slide back in, okay? Now, just so I can show you a little bit about stitch plates real fast, on the back of these stitch plates, the metal stitch plates for the Berninas, there are 2 and sometimes more little clamps. Now these clamps are what holds it tight in here. These clamps are held on by a little tiny screw, and if you tried to put your stitch plate and set it right back down on top, you very well could easily bend these, flatten these, so it makes it really hard to get them in there. If these get bent or break, it's okay. Just bring your stitch plate. We'll unscrew the screw and we'll replace the clip with a new one. But the easiest way to put a stitch plate on is put the stitch plate on in the left first and then push down on the right. Okay, and so that is versus trying to do it straight down or going the other direction, into the left, push down on the right. Okay, all right. All right. Okay, now the big question is going to be, where and how do I oil a machine? Okay, and I'm going to walk through all of the machines here and all the different machines and different hook systems and things like that, and we will excuse me, go over the oil and all of that good stuff that's required. So let me walk to the other side of the table. I'll be right back. Sorry. Lots of back and forth today. Okay. All right, first up is, what oil should I use? Okay. You want to use the oil that came with your machine. Okay. Don't go to the automotive store, don't go to the hardware store, and don't buy it online. Okay. Come see me. We want to make sure that it is as high quality as it should be, so to keep your machine running. Okay. If it is Sunday afternoon and you don't have oil, do not go to the kitchen and pull out the vegetable oil, the olive oil, the canola oil. It does not work in your machine. Okay? And we wouldn't tell you not to do that if it hadn't been done. Okay? Just like the tag on the hairdryer that tells you not to use it in the bathtub. That tag's there because somebody did it. Okay? So you don't want to use cooking oil because it does congeal. You know how the outside of your oil bottles get nasty? Well, that's what would happen in your hook system, and you don't want that because then you really can't sew. You want to use the one that came. Now, many of you will, your oil can change color and it can get more yellow. There's nothing wrong with it. It is still good. It's just the organic matter when it comes into touch with air, it just changes color. There's nothing wrong with it. So if you know your oil started out, let me see, I have an example. Your oil started out like clear, like this, and now it's yellow, like this. It's still good, okay? There's nothing wrong with it. Now, the thing to remember is different machines use different oil, okay? And so specifically, the oil for the newer 4, 5, 7, and 8 series machines, okay? So my 820, 830, 880, my 790, 780, 750, 770, 740, 720, 710, 590, 535, 570, 500, 700, 480, 475, 435. So pretty much any machine that uses the large jumbo black bobbins, your oil is different than if you owned a previous Bernina, okay? So if you have a machine that came with the Bernina oil pen, or now it's an oil jar, those oils are thinner, okay, than if you have oil that came in this tube, okay? And this tube is what came with the classic machines, the Auroras, the 125, 135, 730, 830s, 930s from back in the day, okay? That oil is a tad thicker. And because the newer machines run way faster, we need a slightly lighter oil, okay? And so you don't want to use the thick oil on the newer machines, but you can use the thinner oil on all the machines, okay? But if you have your oil, you need to keep them, for the most part, with the machines. If you have any questions about what oil needs to go on what machine, we will happily help you get them rematched with their proper owners. Okay. Correct. So Miss Jennifer says, so don't use my 200 oil on my 830. That's correct. Do not use the oil that came with the Artista 200 on an 830. You can use the oil that came with your 830 on your 200. Okay, but you can't go 200 to 830. Okay. All right, so the first style of machine that's up is a CB hook machine. These are most of the classic Bernina machines that have a 5.5 millimeter stitch width. So the Activa line, so 210, 220, 230, 240, 215s, the 325 and 335 in the current line machines, and then even farther back to the 1130s, 1230s, 830s, 930s of 20, 30, 40 years ago. Okay, these machines have a piece of the hook that actually comes out of the machine. And so let me get my camera set so I don't have to move it around when you guys are watching. So with these machines, okay, they typically use a bobbin case that looks something similar to this. It has the little stitch finger that's up on it. To get the hook out of the machine, you are going to press the lever that's here on the side, and hopefully the camera will catch up with me here because I don't. Okay, so this lever right here on the side, we're going to press that, and this is going to come forward. This is called the race, okay? And then if you reach in to the machine, you will be able to pull out, this is your hook, okay? This piece right here, you do not want to drop on the ground, okay? A microfiber cloth is going to be your best friend at being able to clean, wipe things down. You can get it into the inside and wipe everything out. When you go to oil this machine, okay? This machine uses this tube oil, okay? We're going to take, turn this around a little bit, and right at 6 o'clock on the metal at the bottom of the machine, we're going to take and put a drop of oil. If you're not sure where at 6 o'clock, because that lighting is maybe a little bad. Let me see if I can make that a little better. Yes, Miss Nancy, this also applies to a 1530. So even if on your machine you, there we go, maybe a little bit better. So you just put a drop at 6 o'clock right there on that metal, okay? If that's challenging and you're still not sure, if you put a drop of oil on the back of this hook, so on this section of the hook, you just put a drop of oil and just kind of, you know, either use your finger or the tip of the oil container, as long as it's not metal, and that's why these are plastic, so that you don't want to scratch your metal. You're going to just oil the back of that. So let's oil this. So I'm just going to put a drop of oil, and I'm just going to kind of rub it around the hook like that. Okay. When you go to put this back into this machine, okay, I'm going to try to get this. So there is a piece in here, right here, that looks like a half circle. It's a moon shape. This piece, your hook, is going to go into this machine on the other side of that. So it's going to finish the circle, and it just kind of sets in there, okay, just like that. If it's too difficult or it's challenging for you to get that set in there, there's nothing wrong with laying your machine down, and then you can come from the top into the machine and set it. Once you have that in place, you flip the race up and push back till it locks in place. If you want to make sure that you have this where it belongs, take a hold of the spindle in the middle and pull on it. And if you pull that towards you and nothing falls out, you're good. You are locked in place. Okay? So that is going to be the way that you oil a Oh, look at that. Thank you, Dr. Mike, for my lights. So just so that you can see, there's the other half, okay? I'm just gonna set this in here, sorry for my hand being in the way, so that it finishes the other half of the circle, and you're just gonna push that up and lock that in place, okay? So that is how you would oil a CB hook machine. And so if your machine looks like that, okay? So I didn't name all the Berninas that are out there that have CB hooks in them. This is how you would oil that machine. It's also in your owner's manual, things along that lines, but sometimes the graphics are a little challenging for everybody to be able to see. All right. Next up is a rotary hook machine. Okay. So my rotary hook machines are machines that are 9 millimeter in stitch width. Okay. So my Artista 200s, 640s, 730s, the 1630 with Bernina, okay, is also a 9 millimeter machine. Oops, sorry. Trying to get the camera here. Get it together. That's lovely. Lovely one thing about light. So the 9 millimeter machines, these rotary hook machines, you do not have a piece that comes out. Your hook is built into the machine, okay? It does not remove. You can still use a microfiber cloth in there to get it cleaned out and things along that lines, but you don't have a piece that you're going to remove. So this here is a rotary hook machine. You can see there's no clip on the side, there's no race that's covering the front of my machine. Oil on a rotary hook machine goes right at 6 o'clock, right next to the metal, okay? So right here where this metal rotates around this hook, okay, this piece is where you would put 1 drop of oil, okay? Hopefully everybody could see that. That's there. Okay. All right. Now, dropping things everywhere. Okay. So that is your rotary hook machine. Okay, pretty easy. Just right there at 9 o'clock, 6 o'clock on the metal, you're going to put a drop of oil. Okay. All right, let me get back on track here. Next up is going to be what we call the Bernina hook or the B9 hook. Okay. And so that B9 hook is what is in the machines today. All my 4, 5, 7 series machines. These are those hooks that have the large jumbo bobbin, okay, that is on it. So let me show you how this. So a B9 or the Bernina hook is very much, it's kind of a combination or a cross between the rotary hook and the CB hook. So it's a little bit of both. Okay, so let's talk about that. So this here is the front of a 770, but this looks no different on a 475 to a 790, okay? So what you have is you have that latch here on the left-hand side that you will press so that your race comes forward, and then if you put your hand on the inside, sorry for my arm, and grab a hold, out comes your hook, okay? So here is your hook, okay? Don't drop this on the ground. This little sharp piece right there, that's what makes your stitch, Okay, so you can use microfiber to clean around your hook, clean that out. You can also use microfiber on the inside to clean out any oil, lint, especially along these edges. You want to look in here on these 7 series for thread debris, 5 series, any of these B9 hooks. You can get loops of thread kind of caught around those little latches right there. Okay. All right. So for the B9 hook, okay, we will oil 2 places. Okay. One place is inside the actual hook itself. There are 2 felt pads. Okay. And you would take and you're going to put a drop of oil on each of those felt pads. They are not lint and dust built up in the machine. Okay. Leave them there. Don't pick them out of your hook. Okay. So there are 2 felt pads. I'm going to use a pin because it's tinier. So right there at basically 3 and 9, that each get a drop of oil. And then you're going to put a drop of oil in the machine at 6 o'clock right on the metal. Okay, right there. The trick to getting this hook back into the machine. Now I have 2 videos that I've put in the presentation for you to watch, but the easiest way is there is a gray dot inside of the machine. Okay, that gray dot needs to match up with the hole that is in the hook. So there's a hole right down here, and so I'm going to line them up. I'm going to pop it in, and then the magnet will grab a hold. And as soon as the magnet grabs it, I can close the hook, the race cover, and if you don't trust it, grab a hold of the spindle and pull forward. Nothing moves, you are secure. Okay? So that is the B9 hook. Okay? One second. I'm going to go across the table so that I can do a couple things. But while I get that set up, let's talk about one thing. Some of you have early edition 7 series machines, and there's some holes in the stitch plate, underneath the stitch plates, one of which is red in color. Now, not all machines have this because they've since started changing them, but do not oil that reservoir, okay? Back at the beginning, yes, the concept was that we oil that reservoir for us to use, and then that just kind of like, it's like a self-lubricating oil. Okay. Jennifer, I'm getting ready to go over 8 series machines. Okay. So that oil, that reservoir, again, what happens after more in-depth testing amongst consumers and things like that, what happens is the lint and dust builds up and then kind of travels into that reservoir, and then it leads to contamination with dust in the channel, and then things build up. You also, a lot of people were overfilling the reservoir, so it was leaking, and then it just gets runny and it just gets dirty. So we eliminated the reservoir on the machines when this is from when the 710, 750, 780. And so the newer 7 series machines, the 740, 770, and 790, and all of the 4 and 5 series do not have that oil reservoir. So don't, even if you have in your owner's manual and on the screen information, if you travel on your machine, you do not oil that reservoir anymore. Do exactly the steps that I just did, and you will be able to oil without any issue. Okay? Now, next, these are the 2 videos that I have for you that you can watch from the presentation that I've already uploaded to our website. And so there are 2 tricks that you can do to get the hook back into the machine. One is the one that I just showed you, and the other is a trick for basically putting the hook into the race and then flipping it all forward at once. And so so if you struggle doing one way of getting that hook back in, you may want to try the other. So as a reminder, if you go to materialgirlsquilt.com and then click on the YouTube tab, you will be able to scroll down and find the date of the lecture and click on the presentation, and you'll get the PDF file that has all the links and everything in it, so that you will be able to use those. Okay? So an 8 series, let's talk about 8 series machines. Because again, on an 8 series machine, not only is your hook doesn't come out, but it also swings out at you. And so let's take a look at an 8 series machine here. So with my 8 series machines, you're going to pop open your bobbin door and you're going to wait for the hook to swing out at you. Okay. I would take out your needles. You can leave your stitch plate on if you want, if you're just going to oil. I'm going to pop my bobbin out. I'm going to put my hand up underneath of the machine, of the hook. I'm going to hold on to it as I turn this hand wheel towards me. Okay? You want to keep the hook from wanting to swing in, which is why we're putting our hand there. And what I want is I want to get access to behind this metal dot. Okay? One, it will allow you to also get a hold of any dust that's built up, because like, you know, see, I just found a lint bunny. Okay? And I can tip that forward and be able to see right behind that dot. So let me, sorry, I don't want to make anybody motion sick, but okay, so here is the white dot on the front of your hook showing you tension. Here is the adjustment dial for tension on the 8 series, and then right behind that you have an open area. Okay, and the open area is where you're going to oil behind. Okay, you're just going to take and you're going to put one little drop. This is one of those oil pens that doesn't want to squeeze. One little drop behind that, and then you can close up your bobbin. Okay? Do not put your bobbin back into the machine until you've closed it and then reopened it, because if you try to put your bobbin back in when that hook is rotated, it's not. Ooh, look at that big giant dust bunny that just fell out of here. Ooh, that's why you clean the machine. So that is why we get in here and clean. See, that's there. And then the clean back and around. Okay. Does that help my 8 series owners? Because that's usually the hardest part of an 8 series. Now on my 8 series, look at it. It's like not cleaning before somebody comes over and they find dust bunnies. This is very embarrassing. My machine is dirty. I'll just say I did that on purpose so that you can see. For my 8 series and for, you know, even my 7 series machine owners, oh, let me get a bobbin back in here. You do have settings. Let me just go into the gears, into the machine, and then into that. So we talked about the broom for cleaning the thread catcher. You also have an option there for oiling under machine settings, and that will walk you through the video steps of what you need to do to get the to oil your machine. Okay, and so yes, Jennifer, that's fine. If you have to manually turn it back in and then close the door and then reopen it, that's okay. Okay. You also, on my 8 series machines, underneath the broom, you also have this option for, we used the one earlier cleaning the scissors. This one here is going to be for cleaning the needle threader. Okay. And so when you go to clean the needle threader, what's going to happen is, because remember the 8 series machines are an automatic threading, but lint builds up in that needle threader itself. And so if lint builds up in the needle threader, then you will start getting non-threading needles. Okay? So you take the needle out of the machine, you travel to that setting that I just showed you. You're going to touch your threading button. And so remember, your threading button is the one that is currently illuminated. So if you push that, okay, what's going to happen is it's going to swing down and stop part of the way. That's going to allow you, that is going to allow you to be able to carefully get in here and get any little lint and dust bunnies that are living in this area, okay? You want to be careful. You don't want to put anything, see how dirty, too stringy, like a cloth or whatnot, because you don't want to bend or catch your the hook of your needle threader. But this lets you be able to clean that. And then when you're done, you just hit that threading button again. And that will put everything back up. Keep your hands out of the way because you don't want the machine to catch it and then completely throw your needle threader off. But that will help you clean your needle threader, okay, as well. All right. Next up is drop-in bobbins. Okay. So my drop-in bobbin machines. Give me 1 second. I gotta move back over to the other side of the table. Camera ready. So, did I go to one too many screens? Drop-in bobbins first, then we'll come back to overlockers. Told you I was covering every possible machine you could own today. So, drop-in bobbin systems, you don't normally think you need to oil. And they don't really tell you about oiling either, okay, on a drop-in bobbin. So first we have to take our stitch plates off of the machines with your screwdriver. And then you can, typically I pop this cover off. And then you can pop this up and take this off. This piece, this black piece here in the center, is what comes out. This is your hook, okay? And I typically would take your bobbin out. You can then use, microfiber cloth. You can use a brush, whatever you need to get in and clean up. This is where, beyond the thread building up in the feed dogs. Now this machine doesn't have feed dogs. Don't panic because it's an embroidery only machine. So you would clean up your feed dogs, but also make sure you pop your bobbin case basket out because lint and dust builds up underneath of it. Now right in the center of this, okay, there is a little felt pad, okay? 1 drop of oil that came with your machine into that felt pad will just help keep things a little more lubricated. The books don't tell you along that lines to do this, but it does make a little bit of a difference. Now the big thing to remember when you put this bobbin case basket back in is where it needs to line up at. And so it goes into the machine, and the Bernina has a little white, I don't know if you can kind of see it here. There's a little white arrow that's pointing to a white dot here. That's where they need to be. And there's a little notch on the bobbin case basket that should be butting up against this unit right there, okay? Because you don't want to put it in rotated into the wrong position, okay? So we're gonna pop this back in. And once that's in, then you can return your stitch plate, re-screw your screws in, pop your bobbin in, and then you are ready to go. Okay? So that is, like I said, one thing that they don't normally on a drop-in bobbin case talk to you about lubricating that particular area, and I think occasionally it's important, especially if you're starting to have issues with stitch quality or something like that, and you've dusted, you've cleaned, you've done all of that, but it's still not cooperating. And also if your machine starts to sound a little noisy. On an overlocker, the overlockers, the machines tell you where to oil on them. You can, there's just two places on the upper looper that get oiled, and your machine information is going to tell you exactly where to get them oiled. Okay? And so you can see right there where those dotted circles are at, that's where the two drops of oil go. The overlockers have another set of oil. They have their own type of oil as well. And there was a question, Miss Susan, I saw your question about oil. It's going to depend upon the velocity of the oil and what it is. So if the velocity number is the same, then it's the same. But I don't know them off the top. I know it's Belicite 6, I think, is what's in the 8, 7, and 8 series pens, I believe. Don't hold me to that. I try not to have to know those too many specifics. I just know that this pen. But for some reason, Belicite 6 sticks in my head. And it's still early out there for Dr. Mike to pop in and tell me I'm incorrect in another way. So your overlockers will be oiled this way. The new 8 automatic threading overlockers never put oil in the air threading channels, okay? And the information for oiling and maintaining that machine is with that machine. I did not have images of it, but the big thing on those machines is to not put oil in those those air thread channels. On a Q series machine, now this image here on the Q series machine is looking down from the top. So we take the stitch plate off just like we do on a regular machine, and you can see this is a stitch regulator here and a stitch regulator here. You're going to take the hand wheel that's right on the front and you're going to rotate it so that you have access to this little ridge, okay? And that ridge is where you're going to put the 1 drop of oil at, okay? And then rotate the hand wheel. You should always oil your machine with no bobbin in it, okay? Because you don't want the oil to grab a hold of the thread and then travel through your bobbin thread, okay? And so you want to pop your bobbin out, rotate the hand wheel, drop of oil on that little ridge, and that's good. So that is for all my Q machines, 16, 20, 24, in a table or on a frame. That's how you oil it, okay? Now, I know I figured this question would come up at some point in time today with people for my 5 and 7 series machines. Sometimes some of you can embroider and be embroidering, and then all of a sudden your thread color will start to change, especially if you're using white, light ivory, a light colored thread. And it happens, and what usually is that we've got some dirt, oil, and grease built up in the hook area that we need to get out because it's being transferred to the thread. This sometimes we see it happening when the machine runs for a long period of time, like you've been embroidering from sun up to sundown. You haven't oiled your machine. Maybe you've over oiled the machine at some point in time. And so it happens you just need to stop what you're doing, okay? And we need to take the machine apart and we need to clean it. And we typically I suggest using a Q-tip, okay, and some alcohol, and using that inside of your hook area with the hook removed, and using that to clean up the excess oil and grease that's kind of built up. And you're going to continue to do that until you don't see that anymore. And so sometimes I'll start out with wetting a paper towel with some alcohol and rubbing on the inside, wetting a microfiber cloth, rubbing until I don't see anymore on the cloth. Then I go to using the end of a Q-tip. Just like with, I'm not a huge proponent of Q-tips because we like to stick Q-tips where they don't belong, right? And that's the big warning with Q-tips. So the same goes for a machine. Don't stick the Q-tip back into an area that you can't get to, because the tip of that Q-tip could easily come off and dislodge and end up someplace that you can't get it, and then your machine will have to come back in for service. So I highly recommend just using the Q-tip around the hook area, just so you can make sure you have all the little nooks and crannies of those crevices around the metal clean, okay? Get it all clean. Lubricate 1 drop. That's all you need, okay? And they suggest that if you are doing a lot of embroidery for long periods of time, that after each run of your embroidery, after a hooping, that you wipe down the inside of the machine, okay? Because the oil and the grease heat up. I mean, they've been running 1,000 stitches a minute for 9 hours. You know, things are going to get loose. And they're going to warm up, and then they're going to start running a little bit faster. And so I typically will clean it up, and then I will put on another hoop, some scrap fabric, something like that, and run either the design that you're on, run a couple, but pick a design that's got like satin stitching. And that way you can watch it go back to its original color, make sure that it's changed and it's clean. Okay, so that is typically the not in your manual, Miss Susan, but I will find out. They don't usually specify in my technical manuals. They are okay. All right. So that's usually the big question that we get about that, and it's usually a big panic as well. So to ensure the quality and function of your sewing machine, you want to make sure that you regularly clean it and maintain it, not just beyond what you can do, but it should go in for regular, you take your car in for an oil change, right? We don't drive a car for 100,000 miles without changing its oil and doing its regular maintenance and expect it to last 100 years without it. And so the same thing goes to say for your sewing machine. We recommend annually servicing your machine, especially if you're a regular sewer. The intervals of that cleaning and maintenance is going to depend upon things. What fabrics do you use? What threads are you using? How often do you use your machine? Things like that. The machines today have notifications set up on them. When you hit a particular stitch count, it's time to clean and oil. And you hit a certain thread count, it's time to clean the thread cutter. When you hit another certain thread count, it's time to take your machine in for service. Especially if you haven't. When we get the machine in, the technicians get the machine in for servicing, we reset those counters. And so that way, I think it's 1,000,000 stitches. I don't know the exact number off the top of my head, but I honestly wouldn't wait for those to come up, especially for the oiling and the cleaning. I think sometimes it's too much. 500,000 stitches is not a ton of stitches, but that's a lot of lint and buildup, especially if you're needle felting, if you're sewing wool or, polar fleece, anything like that. So just know that the more you stitch with fuzzy and fabrics and buildup, cotton thread is terribly linty, okay? Arfil is less linty, but I was sewing with another brand of thread this week on the long arm. Oh my God, I couldn't believe the amount of lint in my machine just after one pass. I don't typically run my long arm with cotton thread. So that was also surprising. So definitely oiled my machine way more because of the lint. And I could see the lint building up on the needle bar and stuff like that. So that just told me that what I could see was that I needed to make sure I oiled after a bobbin change or things like that. So just watch what you are sewing and that type of thing. And again, all of these items here, these resources in that PDF that you can get on the website, these are all hot links. So you can actually click them. They will lead you to blog posts from Bernina USA, Bernina International. They'll lead you to videos from Bernina International and that type of thing. So all the information that I did here. There was a Facebook Live done last year with Hans Herzog from Bernina USA. He's the lead technical director at Bernina USA. He did an FAQ and some information that I'm sure is still up. One of these links here is a blog post to the FAQ that came out of that, and so that's there as well. But, you know, I hope that, if anything, that you found this helpful in just kind of referencing back. If you should need any, make me bigger, any help or assistance in where to thread your machine, how to thread your machine, how to oil. I'll help you thread your machine too. How to oil or clean and maintenance it, please let me know. I will either come on in and I will show you close up on a machine we have here, or I can, if you're not local or coming into stores at the moment, I will try to send you video and closer pictures of things so that you can make sure that you get what you need. Okay? All right. Well, I think I've talked enough. We had a really long breakfast club this morning, but I wanted to make sure I covered all possible types of hook systems for not just Bernina's, but for other brands. Okay, so I hope that you, we do have the mini vacuum attachments. I guess Mom's not watching because otherwise she would have brought it to me. So it's over in the other room. It's a box. It has a bunch of little things for anything, especially if you've got a dirty keyboard or like to eat around the computer like I do. So thank you guys. Yes, you can totally tell by the sound on our Bernina when you need oil. Okay, so that's the other indication. If you're like, man, my machine has gotten really loud or really noisy or making strange noises, oil will usually help you. Okay, well, thank you everybody. I hope you, Miss Ann, any videos for oil? Yes, they actually are built into the Q series machine, but I will also get some links. I didn't get them in here last night, but the on the Q series machine, when you go to oil the machine, there is a video built right into the machine that plays, and so that's built in there for you as well, and it's got a better picture than what I could get last night. But yes, so everybody have a great day. I'm gonna go and clean this up and get ready for my next class at 10. So have a great day. Everybody go clean your machines right now. Clean, oil, put in a new needle before you start sewing for the weekend. Bye everybody. Thanks so much for joining.